So recently I tried out Sonic Frontiers for the first time, and while it shows some relatively good potential, I couldn't help but think one specific thing throughout my first 40 minutes. Too much. Combat systems, button combos, geometry filling the sky, impressively detailed accessibility options, skill trees, new abilities needing to learn the ropes to gain muscle memory, an entire open world dotted with side activities, mini levels entirely separate from the world itself, built on a different gameplay philosophy. It was overwhelming and frankly demotivating. This isn't Frontiers' fault. In fact, having so much at the player's fingertips is great, but I simply wasn't in the mood to learn a whole new experiential language when I booted the game up. I was tired, my head hurt, I needed something less loud, something impactful yet comfortable, something simple. The point of this video is that I found that in a really cool game called Shadow of the Colossus. A world so incredibly expansive yet so melancholically peaceable. So bombastically heart-pounding yet with nothing to worry about. The game has no intrusive HUD, no complex systems to intimidate you with, no barrier to entry, just you, your horse, and a forgotten realm. You've come to this land for one reason, to bring your lover back from the dead. We're never explicitly told how she died, only that our protagonist is obviously in desperate need of a means to revive her, so he travels to what seems to be a land untouched by humanity for generations. And Shadow of the Colossus is an old game. The original PS2 title came out in 2005 and didn't receive a proper remake until 2018 or so on the PS4, which is the version I played. There are no significant gameplay differences between the two, to my knowledge. The remake just contained slightly more added content and a fresh coat of paint. I had always heard of the game, but on account of not owning a single Sony console until this year, I had never gotten the chance to play it. But after receiving my own physical copy from family as a Christmas gift, thank you very much, I can state with full confidence, this game is art. It's one of the most unique titles I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. Don't get me wrong, many of my favorite games are filled with incredibly creative and unusual ideas and philosophies, but Shadow of the Colossus's incredible individuality is less so derived from what it does and far more emphasized by what it doesn't do. So many games in our modern era are packed to the brim with content, and I use the word content very intentionally, because there is a difference between content as pictured here and content as pictured here. With very few exemptions, most modern free-roaming titles are obsessed with padding out their own runtime with side objectives that are fun, but put the player into mental autopilot, and even the greatest side objectives, such as entire optional areas in Elden Ring, remain defined by their namesake, side objectives. A side quest can either add or detract from a narrative experience and vibe. It can either bog down whatever possible thesis the game was attempting to communicate or play into that thesis. And Shadow of the Colossus takes both options and friggin' Donkey Kong Bongo Jet Smash Monsters University. Why did I write that? It completely eradicates all side objectives, yet keeps the incredibly expansive world. Like, do you guys understand how big this game is? This is easily the size of a modern open world title's map. It just seems less plentiful because it is. You have one objective: find Colossus, defeat Colossus, and then repeat 15 times with nothing in between except occasional cutscenes. And this. And it is brilliant. Never in my life would I have assumed that being forced to spend 9 minutes at a time traversing an entirely empty world with 0 enemies to defeat and 0 functional content to discover, just to find one boss and defeat it before rinsing and repeating the process 16 consecutive times would be so serenely fulfilling. When I'm riding on horseback with nothing to do, I'm not checking my phone or listening to music. I'm just sitting there, staring at the screen, taking it all in. The scenery is absolutely beautiful. And in the grand scheme of things, it's very one note. You have maybe 3 dominant environments, plains, forest, and desert. And yet I have never been so appreciative of a game's simple beauty. I kinda can't express to you how playing this game feels, truly. That is something you can only discover for yourself. But when I'm just riding my horse amidst a melancholic, vast, simple world, I'm not given to boredom. I'm driven to introspection. I am a stranger in a world I know nothing about. A world where objects of interest are so scarce that every little thing you find feels meaningful. Every forest, every waterfall you come across, every ancient ruin rarely have any functional use at all. Yet they're special. The omittance of side objectives forces the player to find meaning in the environment itself as they progress through the main quest, which is the only quest. The world of Shadow of the Colossus is not merely a backdrop to its gameplay, it is the game. And most impressively, this minimalistic design philosophy is exactly why every Colossus fight is so enthralling. Nearly every encounter with a Colossi is a near-biblical event in which you scale these Elden monoliths, practically begging and pleading for an opportunity to jump to the next platform embedded in the creature's body. As you're swung around like a hapless ragdoll, you feel so incredibly enraptured in this movie scene of a boss fight. The beautiful soundtrack has more invigorating and recognizable musical motifs than is present in most modern cinema, egging you on to maintain your attempt and persist against your enemy. Every Colossus is so intricately detailed and designed. Scaling them isn't as simple as climbing a cliff in Uncharted. I do love Uncharted, though, I must admit. You're constantly being thrown around as the monster tries to shake you off of its body, making for some extremely close calls and thrilling sequences when parkouring your way up. Not all Colossi are scaled in the same way. For example, some are aerial while others are aquatic, but they all maintain the same philosophy of forcing the player into a riveting test of endurance. The player's excitement grows with every trial and every error overcome, and when the music swells just at the right moment, this is when the game transcends entertainment and becomes your imperative. Your purpose has been shifted from enjoyment to triumph. You are not focused on relaxing and having fun. You are in an adrenaline-filled flow state where the only thought filling your mind is, I can do it. And none of this would have been possible without that serene time in between. That spacious period in which you have nothing to do but examine and think. To exist and truly appreciate everything around you in wonderful contrast to the vigorous intensity of overcoming a colossal foe. This is the essence of Shadow of the Colossus. I haven't even actually talked about the gameplay itself yet. Colossus's gameplay is fittingly minimalistic. You can do 3 things: climb, shoot, and stab. The climbing mechanics themselves are good, nothing too special in comparison to the modern AAA's obsession with scaling mechanics. However, an interesting thing to note about the climbing is that you're forced to hold the R2 button down when nearing a ledge to grab onto it, rather than the game making you automatically grab on. While laborious at times, I think this is an excellent feature. Being required to time your button presses adds a whole new layer of simplistic yet engaging tension, and being forced to hold down R2 for minutes at a time while scaling a Colossus really contributes to that feeling of desperate grip. Beyond that, your sword and bow are as simple as it gets. There's zero melee combat beyond basic slash and stab Colossus, but that's entirely excusable, as a lack of overworld enemies negates the need for anything deeper than that. The bow is a good supplementary tool that you have the opportunity to employ pretty intelligently at times. There's a certain endgame Colossus who needs to be shot on the hands and shoulders with the bow, making him move his limbs to the wound in reaction to the shot, which allows you to continue scaling him, and that's only one example of the unique and smart design behind these creatures. As you know, the story itself is similarly minimalistic. A deity tells you to defeat 16 Colossi to resurrect your dead girlfriend, as you traverse a silent world untouched for what must be millennia. Yet again, it is that perfect simplicity that allows the player's mind to ruminate on what the origin of the Colossi are, and how the Forbidden Lands came to be, or even how they drifted into obscurity. Wonderfully subtle environmental storytelling truly helps hammer this idea home. Every structure, functional or not, becomes an exciting find when the incredibly vast land around you is so barren. After besting the last Colossus, we are finally treated to an extremely long ending cutscene, which is appropriately minimalistic in terms of exposition, and it allows the player to continue asking questions even after the credits roll. I don't find it necessary to spoil the ending here, as I don't have too much to comment upon, but suffice it to say, they did a good job. The game isn't completely perfect, the difficulty curve can be a little bit inconsistent, and there are a few recycled elements when it comes to the Colossi, but I can't expect any game to be completely perfect, okay? If I'm giving this game a 5 out of, wait, not 10, out of 5, sorry, it doesn't mean that it's this perfect, flawless work of art. It means it accomplishes its thesis and goal perfectly. And I think Shadow of the Colossus does. The only glaring issue I can think of with this game is that I want more of it. I heard that there was originally gonna be like 32 Colossi or something. Like 48 Colossi. How insane would that be? And you know, awakening a hunger for more in the player is nowhere near a negative aspect. As I'm writing this, I'm almost halfway through my 3rd playthrough on New Game Plus. Sorry, Game Plus. This is most certainly a game I will be returning to for years to come. And it's hard to find a game like that. Maybe I could do this game more justice if I had a little more time to grow with it and a more professional script. But even so, as it stands, Shadow of the Colossus is among the most special games I've ever played. Its indifference to constant engagement and its embracing of the mundane and melancholy forces gamers to flip everything they know about gaming on its head, and appreciate the time in between the action, to truly exist in a world, peaceably, undistracted, and in awe of the land you inhabit. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. Obviously, this is the first of a new series. I'm so done saying, like, this is the first of a new series. It's like I say that every single video. But yeah, I do hope you enjoy it. Tell me what you think. Yeah. Yipty-doo. Yee-hoo-ha-ha. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the time. Okay, bye-bye. Love you.